Hi, welcome to another reading vlog. I'm very impressed with myself for filming right now because I honestly spent 8 hours on video calls at work today and I'm quite sick of screens and cameras and everything. No, it really wasn't that bad, but it was. Anyway, not every day will be like that. Today was a bit crazy. But since it's Wednesday, I thought I'd better get into what's going on with my reading. So, I started reading Insignia by Kindcaid. I am about 60 pages in so far, so that's not very far. Basically, it's this YA dystopian where World War III is happening, but because they've learnt from previous wars, they're having this war out in space so that people don't really have to be bothered about it. There's no like consequences on Earth of this war happening wherever it's happening. But the way that technology has escalated, the people that are fighting out in space are actually like robots or something that are being like piloted by these teens, and it's only teens that are able to pilot them because only teens' brains can adapt to this like modification to their brain that allows them to pilot these spaceships or robots or I don't know what yet because we haven't got to that. But so far I am enjoying it. We've also got this thing with the main character. His father is a really bad gambler, and because of that he's been raised in a really rough situation and he doesn't want to be the same as that. However, it does seem like a lot of the conspiracy theories that his dad thought have maybe not entirely missed the mark. So I'm going to keep reading this week. My plan is to finish it, and if I can finish this, then I will have completed all my books for the Becca's Bookopoly readathon. I'd also really like to start this book this week, but we'll see how that works out, because I'd also like to make some progress on this week, but I have too many things to do, so we don't know how any of that will work out. As far as audiobooks go, I have been, while I do housework and stuff, listening to Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. It's just a bunch of essays. Before I read this, I would have said about feminism, but not really. They're more just essays about her life, and obviously as a black woman, there are a lot of aspects about feminism and racism. But I think the title makes you think that it's going to be essays about feminism, and it kind of is, but also one of the essays was just about her being in these Scrabble tournaments and like her experience being a new teacher, and like it was interesting, but it wasn't what I was expecting. I do think they're really well written essays, so if you like reading essays about people's life, I think you will really like this. I'm not sure whether I'm enjoying it or not. It's okay, but I think because I'm reading it by listening to it in lots of little bits, that's not really the ideal experience. Really, I should be like focusing in one essay at a time. Also, in one bit she implied that she thought that Sweet Valley Confidential did what it was supposed to do, and I hated Sweet Valley Confidential, so I emphatically disagree. But it's not terrible. I do think I probably would have got a lot more value out of this when I was 20, because a lot of the stories she's telling are about her experiences as a young woman in her 20s. And in my 20s, I could have related to that, whereas now that I'm a lot older, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that, but like not particularly relevant to my issues at the moment. Still, I'm actually only about a third of the way through, so I've got a lot more essays to listen to. I'm going to try and break them up by essay, but I just don't think that's going to fit in my life at the moment. Also this week, I want to try and get to the audiobook of Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So that's the first book in the Grishaverse, a book I've been saying I wanted to get to for a long time, mainly because everyone says Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom is so good, so I'd like to read those, even though if I'm honest, I'm not sure if they'll really be to my taste. But they're very popular and you never know, so I can listen to them on audiobook and see how we go. I feel like I'm always talking about how I don't have time to read books that I don't think I'm going to enjoy, and then I'm spending lots of time reading books that I don't know if I'm going to enjoy. But there's a difference between thinking I'm not going to like one and not knowing if I'm not going to like it. Is there? Or am I just justifying bad decisions? Who knows? Maybe once I've read it, we'll decide. But there have definitely been books like this that I wasn't sure if I'd like them, and then I love them. Sometimes you've got to take risks. Anyway, those are my reading plans for the week, and I will check in again when I have made some more progress. Hello, so I have survived the week of work. It's Friday night. I'm really glad, to be honest. But I thought I would update you on my reading before I go and have a bath and relax. So, I've been continuing to listen to Bad Feminist, but I haven't been getting very far through it. I'm about halfway through it now, and I've realized that there are 37 chapters in this audiobook, which I think means that there's 37 essays, and I've read about 16 of them so far. I will say, like, the topics that it's covering have been more broad since last time I updated, and there have been a few more that were like more feminism focused, specifically around like how feminism is dealt with in media. But I also feel like there's just so many essays and they're all so short that I'm just not reading it in the right way. They all kind of blend together in my head. I don't know if I was reading them all just individually, whether they would stick in my head better or not, but I just feel like she's talking, and sometimes it's entertaining, sometimes I'm a bit bored, but for the most part, I just don't think a lot of it's going to stick with me. I do think it's well written. I can see a lot of people liking this, and she does have some interesting thoughts. I like it, but I just don't... I don't know. Maybe it's just because this week I've been using a lot of brain power on work stuff, and so when she's like having these deep thoughts about things, instead of thinking about them, I'm thinking about work stuff. Because when you've got a new job, you're trying to cram so much stuff into your head. You don't have time to cram essays into your head. So maybe I shouldn't be listening to this right now. But I am, and I'm going to keep listening to it and hopefully finish it off this weekend. I wanted to read another audiobook this week, so we'll see if we can somehow do that. I don't think there's enough time in the weekend to do that, but we'll see what happens. As well, I've been reading Insignia. I am now up to page 158, so I think I'm about 100 pages further. It has been really interesting how they're looking into, like, they've got these neural processes in their head, and there's like cool things that it allows them to do, like see things in different ways, but they're also exploring the fact that it means that other people can make them see things in other ways, including really bad ways, and it can make really horrible things happen to them, and I suspect that that element is going to be explored a lot more further in the book. I also like the way that the relationships, like all the relationships are quite YA. We're in this military school, and they're just being teens, you know, which as a non-teen, that sometimes can be a bit annoying. But I do think the way that S.J. Kindcaid does these kind of things, she often goes in unexpected directions. She definitely did in the Diabolic series, which I have read the first 2 books of, and I suspect this one might do a few more things like that. But I will also say, because we're in this like military school, there were some classes that I think she just kind of used them as an opportunity to do some info dumping about the world, and I don't think that those classes even made sense, because our main character has come in late in this semester, so like he's missed some of the initial classes. So then why would he be in these classes where they're giving very rudimentary information about the world? Doesn't make sense. It's just an excuse to give the reader lots of information about the world. But I did find some of that information really interesting, like the way that it's the corporations that are running this war out in space, and how the world has changed in regards to the influence corporations have on the world. It did remind me of The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley, which is another one where corporations have kind of taken over the world and then they're having wars between each other. This is doing a similar thing. Obviously, The Light Brigade is really dark, gritty, adult science fiction, so it's probably more realistic and like gets more into the depth of that, but I'm not far into this, so it could get more into things. So I'm really interested to see how those two will compare in their vision of a dystopian future. Hello, it is Saturday now, and I slept in a lot this morning, so I haven't done much other than I just filmed a video, hence this setup, and I'm trying to remember what else did I do today. There was something else, but I don't remember. Let's talk about reading. I have been reading this last night. Did I talk to you last night? Yes. Last night and a bit of this morning, I managed to get up to page 250, so I'm past the halfway mark. They had this little competition where they were trying to hack each other's neural processes, which was kind of light and fun, but also there's kind of this underlying thread of how this could really be used against them in the real world, and then something just happened, the last bit that I read, which will be really interesting to see what happens. I still don't really know though what the scope of this book is. So this is the first book in a trilogy, and I feel like at this point in the book normally you would have an idea of where the book might end, like a goal that the main character was trying to achieve. But I feel like the main character's goal is really to start fighting in these intrasolar wars, but I also feel like he's still too far away from that. Maybe he'll get there by the end of the book. But the thing that just happened could mean that he gets there in a way he doesn't want to get there. And knowing S.J. Kindcaid, I suspect that might be what happens. Anyway, I am enjoying that. As well, I decided to actually make some good decisions for once, and I keep talking about how with Bad Feminist I don't think I'm consuming it in the best way, and I also keep talking about how I could probably renew some of my audiobooks, but I haven't looked into it. So I did both of those things, and I've renewed Bad Feminist, and I've decided every morning I'm just going to listen to 1 or 2 essays while I get ready, and then that'll mean I'm listening to each essay in one go, and I'm not like listening to too many of them at once so that they get all blurred together. So I listened to 2 this morning, and they were more about feminism, particularly feminism in media. I feel like most of the time when she talks about feminism, it's feminism in media and just general people's views of feminism. But anyway, I think it will now probably take me a week or 2 to finish off that, and that's fine. Instead, I started listening to Shadow and Bone in bits and pieces. I think I'm about a quarter of the way in, and so far we've just got about as far as what I already knew was going to happen. We've got this girl named Alina, and she lives in this world where they're at war with something, not sure what, but she was traveling somewhere and they had to go through the fold, and something went wrong, and she discovered that she has some magical abilities. And so now they're taking her somewhere to learn how to use those abilities, even though she's still not really sure that she has the abilities, but I'm pretty sure she has the abilities. So far it seems like pretty typical YA fantasy, but I'm kind of enjoying it. It's alright. I don't mind it. And I am going to go over to Jason's house tonight, so as I drive there and drive back, I'll listen to this and hopefully I'll get a decent amount through it. Also, I just want to tell you guys how ridiculous my desk setup is now, because I have 3 screens around me. So I've got this screen, this screen, this screen, and that's my magical, very cheap lighting solution, my whiteboard and my makeup light. I also bought myself this beautiful rainbow keyboard for working, because if you're gonna work, I figure you may as well have pretty things around you. But I do feel like it's somewhat overwhelming having 3 screens in front of me. But it's just how it worked out. In fact, part of me has been thinking maybe I need another screen. Maybe I need a separate external monitor for my work Windows laptop. See, my work Windows laptop has problems with connecting to external monitors, which is very annoying. But it's the weekend, so I shouldn't be thinking about work. I should, however, be thinking about getting ready to go to Jason's. Hello. So, annoyingly, the whole time I was at Jason's, the weather was kind of crap, and so we couldn't do much. And now he's had to go back to work, and the sun has come out. Typical. Also, when I got home, I was not feeling particularly human, thanks to it being that time of the month, so I've just been napping. And I did also read a bit of this book. What has happened? Somebody was hacking his system, which has been quite interesting. I'm now 3/4 of the way through, so I'm going to try and finish that off tonight. Also, I think I'm about halfway through Shadow and Bone. It's alright. Like, it's kind of stereotypical YA in that she's trying to, like, she doesn't feel like she belongs, and she's not, like, clever enough, or she doesn't know how to use her powers, and she's not pretty enough, so she doesn't fit in. Just that kind of thing. I mean, it's a pretty typical YA theme, looking into, like, people's sense of belonging, because when you're a teen, that's something that's important to you usually. So it's fine, like, it's well written. I'm not minding it. I would say probably the only character I like so far is Insignia, but as I said, I'm only halfway through, so we'll see what happens in the rest of the book. There hasn't been as much of the Darkling or Mel as I thought there might be, based on all the conversations I've overheard about this book, but I'm sure they will be important parts of the story, even though I don't really care about either of them. Anyway, right now I'm gonna go walk to the library, return my library book, maybe do some shopping, and while I'm doing that, maybe I can finish this? Maybe. Okay, so I am home from my walk. It was nice to go for a walk. It's also really confusing because it's still sunny outside, but it's actually later than it feels. This is just the confusion that happens with daylight savings, and I feel like I'm going to really struggle to remember to go to bed early enough to be able to get up for work tomorrow. But somehow I'll survive. I did manage to get within the last hour and a half of Shadow and Bone. And firstly, she learned how to use her powers in a way that I thought was very convenient. She had an argument with her old friend, which again seemed very convenient to the plot. But then something happened which I thought took things in a really interesting direction, and I'm interested to see how this first book finishes up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the thing where I read one chapter of this and then I do some kind of houseworky thing, because there's a few things I've got to do. But while I'm doing the housework, then I'll listen to more Shadow and Bone, and then somehow, magically, I'm hoping that'll lead me to finish both of these tonight and also get all the other things done that I want to do. I'm not sure if that'll work, but I'm going to try it. I just finished work and I'm trying to quickly edit a video so that I can go and enjoy the daylight savings sunshine and go for a walk after work. But my computer has decided that it wants more attention from me, even though I spent all day on it, so you'd think it would have had enough of me. So I'm stuck waiting while it processes something. But I'll update you. I did finish Insignia last night and I really enjoyed this. I think it was a lot of fun and things got very intense in the end. There was quite a lot going on. I do think the main character really does some things that are not particularly likable, so probably some people wouldn't like this, but I'm really interested to see where she goes with this series. I think there's a lot of potential. And the bonus is that I actually have the rest of the trilogy because I bought them all for $2 each. I haven't listened to much more of Shadow and Bone. I don't remember what I had read when I last talked to you. I could check the footage on my computer, but I think my computer would take about half an hour to show it to me. But anyway, I think when I go on my walk, I'll be able to finish it because I'm 30 minutes from the end, so very close to the end. I do think, I always hear people talking about whether they're Team Mel or Team Darkling, and I'm team, surely there's somebody better, because they both seem like terrible love interests and I'm not interested in Alina ending up with either of them. I'm pretty sure she ends up with one of them. I managed to avoid spoilers for which one, but couldn't she just find someone else? Anyway, I am not a fan of that. Anyway, I will do one last check-in if I manage to go for my walk and I manage to finish that audiobook to let you know how it goes. Okay, so it is Wednesday, so obviously I completely sucked at finishing up this vlog, but let's finish it up. I did finish off Shadow and Bone on my walk on Monday night, and I liked the ending. I thought it was quite good. What I do think is I don't really understand how there could be any romance between the Darkling, and I guess they'll try to argue that the thing that he did was for the greater good, but really, even if it was, couldn't he communicate better? I still don't really care about that love interest, and I don't really care about Mel, even though it was pushing that quite hard. And I guess the problem for me is that these kind of books always kind of focus on the romance, whereas that's not the part that I'm interested. I'm more interested in the part where there's this shadow fold and this war and the world is really dangerous, and then these people with these magical powers can potentially make the world better. That's interesting, and it is part of the story, but I just want more of that and less of the interpersonal stuff, even though of course that stuff happens, sure. Anyway, I can definitely see why this series is very popular, and I will be continuing with the next book soon. As far as the other books that I've been reading this week, I'm about 3/4 of the way through Bad Feminist, so I will keep going with that. I do feel like a lot of the recent essays that I've been listening to have been more about feminism in media and race in media as well. And it's hard because the ones where I have consumed the media that she's talking about, they're quite interesting to listen to. But when she's talking about ones where I haven't consumed the media, so she was talking about the movie The Help and some other ones, and I haven't watch those movies, so then like I can listen to her and it's interesting, but I can't compare her impressions to mine and see whether it's changing my perspective because I don't really know what she's talking about. Which is part of why I don't tend to watch singular book reviews or like in-depth book reviews unless I've actually read the book, because I just don't know what they're talking about. But anyway, I will continue with that. So I think the books I finished this week was Shadow and Bone and Insignia. I didn't make any progress on Oathbringer. It's still like sitting over here on the corner of my desk. It hasn't moved in like a week. But I'll get back to that soon, I guess. I did also start a new audiobook last night, but I guess that will be for next week's vlog. So that's all for now. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me this week. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this vlog, because I would love to talk with you more about them down in the comments. Otherwise, I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.